Truth and Lies Radio, a program dedicated to revealing the truth and exposing the lies about the destruction of your freedom and prosperity and what you can do about it. And now, your host, former Washington right-wing activist, international living, banking and asset protection author and expert, and American patriot in exile, David Finzer.
This is David Finzer, broadcasting for the next 2 hours from the Gibraltar of the Balkans, the historic city of Novi Sad along the banks of the beautiful Danube River here in Serbia, on my 5,123rd day of voluntary exile in protest from an ever less free America. To comment during the program, you can send me a Skype text at Truth and Lies Radio, all one word, or you can email me at david@truthandliesradio.com. As soon as our new studio is finished, you'll also be able to call in toll-free from the U.S. and Canada, or Skype from around the world and join the conversation. Also remember to check out our Facebook and YouTube pages at Truth and Lies Radio Show. According to the big clock on the truthandliesradio.com's FATCA/Taxmageddon Day countdown page, your taxes will skyrocket and your worldwide financial privacy will expire in 151 days, 13 hours, 52 minutes, and 24 seconds. Well, since the debate over same-sex marriage is spilling over into the business world more than ever before, in fairness to Chick-fil-A, which I might point out is enjoying its greatest single sales day ever, there are lines at all of their stores all over the South for sure. It seems appropriate for someone to name those companies that support the gay special rights agenda, special rights for special people. If Chick-fil-A is going to be named for upholding Christian principles, then I think these companies, in fairness, ought to be named for taking the other side. Number one is Amazon. CEO Chief Jeff Bezos and his wife announced on July 27th that they would be making a $2.5 million donation to the organization Washington United for Marriage. Interesting. I don't see people going out and buying from Amazon or attacking Amazon because of what Jeff Bezos does. I disagree with his position, but he has a perfect right to do that in a free country, but then who says America's a free country? Number two, there's the Washington State referendum, the same Washington State referendum that prompted Bezos' donation, brought in Microsoft and inspired $100,000 in contributions each from Bill Gates and from CEO Steve Ballmer. Number three, Starbucks, another Washington State giant in support of the gay agenda. Executive Vice President Kaylin Holmes came out in favor of legalizing same-sex marriages in Washington in January 2012, prior to the law's passage. Number four, hold on to your cereal, people, as General Mills. In June, CEO Ken Powell hosted a function attended by over 400, LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered, I think I've got them all, professionals, where he, Vice President for Global Diversity and Inclusion, Ken Charles, what the hell is that, and Vice President for Corporate Communications, Tom Forsyth, spoke out against a proposed constitutional amendment that would ban gay marriage in the state of Minnesota. Number five, J.C. Penney, the department store. Despite no actual statements or donations in favor of legalizing gay marriage, J.C. Penney's advertising in the past years made it perfectly clear that they stand with the gay community. In January, the company hired Ellen DeGeneres, one of the most well-known and loved LGBT celebrities, as its spokeswoman. They then courted the ire of organization 1 Million Moms by sending out a Mother's Day catalog featuring a family with two moms instead of a mom and a dad. They did it again a month later with a Father's Day ad featuring two dads instead of a dad and a mom. Great, J.C. Penney's. I'm proud of you. Macy's, not surprising since it's based in New York City, another retail chain that's used to advertising to send the message. The company supported the gay marriage bill in Washington with an ad that showed a wedding cake topped with 2 grooms. Previously, Macy's ads have also supported same-sex marriage, including ads in California protesting Proposition 8. This one, probably the guy from the Old West wouldn't like very much. Levi Strauss & Company. In 2009, the company bedecked mannequins in New York City, LA, and San Francisco with white knots, a symbol of support for gay marriage. The company had previously sponsored an amicus brief. Amicus is friend of the court. That's where you are not directly involved in the lawsuit, but you want to get your 2 cents in California, explaining the economic benefits of gay marriage, as well as signing on to sponsor a program on Logo, a gay channel owned by MTV, and signing a marketing partnership with Milk. Focus features biopic on the slain gay politician from San Francisco, Harvey Milk. Not to be outdone, Apple is number 8. This company was one of the first to contribute financially to the campaign for same-sex marriage. In October 2008, Apple donated $100,000 to the No on 8 campaign, which opposed the passage of Proposition 8 in California. Number 9 is Google. Like Apple, Google came out against Proposition 8. They announced the Legalized Love campaign, etc. Number 10, because we're running out of time, is Viacom, the most recent addition to the gay club. Viacom just signed off on an amicus brief that opposes the Defense of Marriage Act. Well, there they are. So if they are the ones who stand opposed to Chick-fil-A. Personally, I'd like a chicken sandwich. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. I'll be right back. This is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. Well, Obamacare may have had its first fatality already. Cook Medical recently opened a new plant in Canton, Illinois, the Rust Belt, where it had invested about $30 million renovating an abandoned facility. When it becomes fully operational, the plant should employ about 300 workers. Pleased with the results, Cook Medical was going to use the new Canton plant as a model for expansion. The plan was to open 5 new plants in the Midwest over 5 years, with each of the new plants employing about 300 workers each. Except last week, Cook Medical canceled their expansion plans. Why? Because they may be Obamacare's first fatality, of course. More specifically, within Obamacare, there is a provision that hits medical device manufacturing with new taxes. After Cook's financial department calculated the cost, the company realized this new tax is going to cost them $20 to $30 million a year before the expansion. So multiply that times 5. So that's 2 or 3 years of planning expenses, 5 shiny new facilities, and 1,500 American workers destroyed before Obamacare has even begun to rev up its engines of destruction and mayhem. Does this mean Cook won't expand? Of course not. But it does mean that Cook will expand by transitioning overseas. Some comments have already made about places like Ireland, Denmark, and Australia surrounding Cook's announcement of the cancellation of the additional plants. Democrats and leftists like to preach taxes don't drive the rich from the cities and don't drive businesses overseas, but then economics has never been their strong suit. This is a perfect example of when you get the government involved, you try a little bit here, a little bit there, and eventually it becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. And because of it, at least 1,200 American workers will not have a job in a good industry, and a company that was trying to revive the Rust Belt to bring back jobs in abandoned plants throughout the Midwest, it's not going to happen. All thanks to the guy who lives in that very expensive public housing on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, who has a private plane provided by taxpayer support, who lives like a king at taxpayer expense, but he has to dig into private industry and take money because nobody actually made it by themselves. They all got help. Well, the help he gave the 1,200 Americans was to take away future jobs from them. Now, General Motors plans to shell out as much as $600 million to sponsor a European soccer team, that's football for anyone outside the United States, despite owing $27 billion to American taxpayers. GM's Chevy logo will appear front and center on the jerseys of the soccer powerhouse Manchester United of the UK as part of one of the largest sponsorship deals in U.S. history. GM will pay $60 million a year for the logo, nearly double the $31 million European insurance company Aon paid, despite plummeting sales and massive liabilities. The U.S. Treasury owns 26.5% of the stock of the Detroit-based automaker, which has been reeling from a dwindling European car market. Now, if you think this is a good expenditure of tax money, that's great. But I think it's a pretty lousy expenditure. First of all, the Treasury shouldn't be involved, shouldn't own any of GM. It was not too big to fail. It should have failed. When companies become so big that they cannot support their own weight, they need to die so the companies that can compete can come in and replace them. That's the law of economics. That's how the invisible hand that Adam Smith talked about works. But governments always like to preserve the status quo and then alter it slowly and slowly, in bit by bit, day by day by day by day by day, in their favor. And so they will pour taxpayer money, $27 billion of taxpayer money, into a company that shouldn't have gotten 27 cents. It should have been allowed to fail. It would have been cheaper for the United States government to extend unemployment insurance to those people, to sell off the parts, whatever, break it up like they used to have these massive takeovers where the assets were worth more individually than the company as a whole. That would have been better than what they're doing. They are distorting the market by continuing to reward companies that are failing or really have failed. But then when you consider that the whole U.S. economy has failed and just no one wants to say the emperor has no clothes, I guess maybe it makes a bizarre sort of sense, at least inside the Beltway. And of course, everyone knows that the District of Columbia is a place bounded on all four sides by reality. While trying to engage in a little reality, the House of Representatives approved Republican legislation late Wednesday that would extend all current tax rates for another year, and also turned down a Democrat bill that would have allowed rates to rise for higher income earners. You know, the people who invest and create new companies and create jobs, like the medical company we were just talking about. The Job Protection Recession Prevention Act was approved in a 256 to 171 vote that saw 19 Democrats vote with the Republicans, highlighting growing division in the Democratic Party over taxes. Only one Republican voted no, and I'd sure like to know who that is. I'm going to have to research that one. With the House vote, both chambers have now spoken on tax policy. The Senate, of course, has gone crazy. The House is trying to keep the tax cuts in place. This will allow both parties to make their case on the campaign trail, appealing to their core. The Senate, of course, refused to extend the tax breaks, bringing the U.S. ever closer to Tax-mageddon, and we're counting down the days. And it's not very many days left, really. It's less than half a year before Tax-mageddon hits. It's actually, August, September, October, November, December. 5 months before Tax-mageddon hits, and people don't even have the options. They have less options than ever before, with FATCA coming and with all of the new restrictions that the Treasury wants to put in place on foreign investments. So the government is really clamping down. And I think they're getting to the point where they're just going to say, okay, send us all your money. We'll keep what we think you owe, and we'll let you try to live on the rest. That's where it's heading. In the balance, the fate of cybersecurity legislation in the Senate is expected to be determined on Thursday, today, when cloture for Senator Joe Lieberman, an independent Democrat, Cybersecurity Act comes before the Senate. By all appearances, the cybersecurity bill doesn't have enough Republican support to get cloture, meaning cut off debate and actually vote, and move to the finish line. Still, there's a group of senators who met yesterday afternoon to try to see if some sort of compromise can be worked out. But remember, they've already tacked onto the bill riders that make it completely unacceptable to any libertarian or conservative having to do with gun control that have nothing to do with cybersecurity. That's a dirty parliamentary trick pulled by Chuck Schumer, a New Yorker, which of course New York has very strict gun control laws, and as everyone knows, there is no crime in New York, right? Of course. Well, I don't think so. So this cybersecurity legislation, this is really CISPA 2. It's not good the way it's written, so I hope they don't get cloture. Any deal will probably be a bad one for us, and the internet is too important a vehicle because, frankly, without the internet, the mainstream media is going to have even more of a lock on the news that people get, and government's going to have more of a lock on news that people get. Thomas Jefferson said he couldn't imagine a book that could become a matter of public scrutiny or government involvement. Well, the internet should not become a matter of government involvement or government scrutiny. It should be a place for free and open debate. Certainly cyber fraud should be prosecuted. Certainly cyber crime should be prosecuted. Certainly the government should defend from cyber attack itself anyway, and private groups are already doing that. But this is an important worldwide open forum which, if anything, is going to save freedom and free expression and free enterprise, it's going to be the internet and the people who use it. One of the people I met when I was on my last trip to England, I went to a libertarian gathering, that's I guess all you could call it, proudly proclaimed himself a hacker, and as I said, he was French, and probably the first Frenchman I ever met that I liked. Anyway, this is David Finzer for Truth and Lies Radio. I'll be back in 6 minutes after the news and a commercial, and when we come back, we'll talk about the anti-Christian Pearl Harbor that's coming up. This is Truth and Lies Radio. David Finzer here. Don't go away.